Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. This is Lago di Como. Now, this is definitely a more panoramic image as far as the dimensions and proportions. Is this a stitch image as well?
Probably.
Okay. So essentially, the image it's on a overcast with sunny breaks, so you can see a little bit of sky. The image is dominated by these hillside or mountains. Like there's no snow on the peak. I could imagine that in the winter maybe there would be snow, but it goes down pretty sharply down to the water's edge. And so when you photograph this, you are the photographer, yeah?
Yep.
So when you photograph this, you must have been on some kind of boat, because there's, let's say 1/5 or 1/4 of the image at the bottom is it salt water or fresh?
Fresh.
Oh, it's a lake.
Yeah.
Okay. Lago di Como.
There you go.
Lake. There we go. There you go.
You got there.
I'm just a little slow. So do tell. What am I looking at?
Yeah, so that's Lake Como in Italy. A lot of reasons.
Vaffanculo, you're going to be part of me. Okay, that's good. Okay,
Very good, yes. We're going to have to bleep that, but yes, good. So I think Italy was probably in many ways my window to the rest of the world.
Oh.
So yeah, the first time I really left the U.S. Was in high school with my Latin class, as you do.
Right.
So I studied Latin in high school. And when I was in 11th grade, we went to Rome.
Wow.
And yeah, up and down southern and middle of Italy, and that was really my first. It was my first time in Europe, certainly.
Wow.
So that was really my first taste of something completely different from what I knew, and so I think probably from there I knew that I was going to go back and keep seeing Europe, at least, if not the rest of the world.
It must have. So you're how old? 17? 16?
Yep, 17.
Yeah. So it must have been something pretty intense. Like in classrooms, you're studying, you're getting the story and the language, and you're getting that immersion in the language. Okay. And within that language are the fables and whatever if it's Latin, it's going to be the anchor to Italy as well, and all of that. And then you guys go there, and so you go there on the one hand, as an immersion in terms of the language and the culture and the geography, but also the fact that you're coming from the States and you haven't seen something like this before. And then you went back to make this photo, right?
Yeah, I've been back to Italy a dozen times or so.
Okay.
So yeah, it started it's probably a lifelong obsession with Italy and Rome specifically.
Oh.
So yeah, it's kind of my second home.
Oh.
Yeah.
How do you say I love it in Italian?
Amo is I love. L'amo with a L apostrophe, perhaps. I love it. Mi piace.
L'amo. Okay.
Mi piace.
I love it. I love it.
Fantastico.
Okay. So we're framing so you understand curating a collection from your work doing stock photography. So even though maybe you didn't work as a curator yourself, you had to curate your work to make it sellable and all this stuff.
Yep.
I say to you, pick 4 photos. Let's use that to curate the conversation. So now we're in Italy. We're looking across this lake. Why, in your mind, do you have this impulse to bring us to this place?
Yeah, I think just Italy and travel to Italy, my experiences there have been a really big part of my life.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, first time was in high school. And then I think the following year, my senior year, we actually had an Italian foreign exchange student come to my high school in Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
His name is Federico, as any Italian would be called.
Sure.
And he's still a very good friend of mine. I talk to him still. So
awesome.
That's a lifelong Italian friend I made. And then when I was in college, my sophomore year, I went to study abroad in Rome. For a semester, and my apartment was just outside the Vatican. It was amazing. So I would walk home through a tunnel to get to my apartment, and as soon as you come out of the tunnel, you can see the cupola of St. Peter's Basilica.
Yeah,
I'm not Catholic or religious at all, but it's just a very striking place to see. So I was there for 4 months, had a great time. It was such a great experience that 2 years later, my senior year, I did it again. Mm. So I went back to Rome, studied abroad at a different university for another 4 months, another semester. So that was great. But then, go for it.
To the
Yes,
question?
interject.
Have you ever been mugged in Italy?
No, but I know people who have.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Avoid the train station.
Okay,
Just stay away
okay,
from train stations
okay.
and you'll be fine.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. You see, so some useful information
Yes,
on this
top tip.
podcast.
Yeah, in general,
Awesome.
Europe doesn't have a lot of violent crime like here, but theft and that sort of thing happens quite a lot. So just tie down all your shit.
Yeah.
It's very important. But I've been lucky enough not to have that happen.
Okay. So, but you're saying you're across. Okay. So let me just again tie it to. Okay. So I've been to Jerusalem, and if you're talking about antiquities and stuff, there's that feeling of like psychically, it's something pretty powerful to walk down streets that are 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years old.
Yes.
That you look and you're just like, okay, there's a corner store where you can buy whatever, and you look up, and then there's like this architecture that people looked at 2,000, 3,000 years ago. So, like you were saying in Rome, coming from the U.S., I could see why that would have an impact. Okay, take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an important point. It's difficult. Every time I go to Rome, I still feel this obligation to be odd, just because I understand on an intellectual level, the gravitas of everything that I'm actually seeing. The history that happened there. This was the city that ran the world basically 2,000 years ago for centuries, and it's such an interesting and important place. And when you look around. Rome, it's an even weirder case because in most cases, all the buildings they haven't really like bulldozed the ancient stuff or built around it. They just built on top of it. Okay. So every building there has like an ancient foundation, and then when you get above street level, it's apartments and things that have been built more recently. But the ancient foundation is still there. It's not even like you have to try to look to find it or go anywhere. It's just everywhere. You can't get away from it. Yeah. So that kind of thing is amazing. I think one of my favorite examples of that, like a thing that I always marvel at, that I can't not think about when I'm in Rome. Yeah. So there's a little place called Largo Argentina, and it's kind of a sunken little forum area, just like one square block, and it has some ancient ruins sticking up out of it. And it's most famous because it's in the city center, but it's also overrun with cats. There are like wild cats all over it, and you wouldn't know it standing there unless someone told you, and they should really put up a plaque or something. But right around that area is exactly or precisely where Julius Caesar was assassinated. Oh, wow. And again, there's nothing to mark it because it happened in not the Senate House where the Senate usually meets, but at that particular moment they were meeting in the Theater of Marcellus, or the Theater of Pompey. Nearby, which doesn't exist anymore. Okay. But you can still see kind of the outline, the curve of the street where the building was, because they built kind of around it. So the building's gone, but you can still see if you know what you're looking for, you can know where you are. Echo. Precisely. And so every time I walk around there, I'm like, Julius Caesar was stabbed to death by his friends. Right. Like near where I'm standing. Amazing. And that never not hits me. It's pretty incredible to, and Rome's just, filled with things like that. Sure. Walking around the Forum and the Colosseum and everything. It's an incredible place.
I had an epiphany this year about Italy. And tell me how full of shit I am, but maybe something here is going to ignite something. Okay, so I grew up in Montreal. I'm a Canadian Montrealer. Okay, Western. You're an American. Okay. So I've met a few Italians, and they're really conscious of the geography of Italy. If you're from the north, from the south, and all this stuff. Okay, fine. Yes. Now, one of the things that I came to realize was that if you're born in Italy, it's in the same way as if you're born in Jerusalem or born in Israel. It's like you can't escape, well, in Israel and Jerusalem, you can't escape the religiosity of the city. Like it definitely seeps into everything. Yeah. Similarly, in Italy, you've got the whole history of the place seeped in everything, the arts, in the philosophy, in the language for sure. And coming from North America, we're somewhat. So I was thinking about this in terms of art, right? So artists from Canada, for sure, Canadians are like this. Americans as well. We're not as shackled to the past, right? So in a way, it's
because we have no past.
Well, no, but or it's a different. I think no, there is a past. I think in America, there's a lot greater emphasis on the American past, right? In Canada, there's a lot more understanding recently of coming to terms with the First Nations or Aboriginal or whatever the term you appreciate. Past, okay, because the Canadian Western past is problematic for a lot of people, but it's relatively recent.
Yes.
So in terms of a creative expression, right? Like when an artist from Canada or from the US is there, they're kind of unshackled by history. Whereas like when I speak to Italians who talk about aesthetics, for example, or philosophy, they have the Renaissance baked into the culture, into their history, So how I described it was I was saying it's kind of like you're shackled. You're not tied down, like you're leashed to this history that is so profound. And in a way, I've had a couple of Italian artists on the podcast, and I brought this up with them, and especially one guy. I think he kind of thought I was a bit of a kook or an idiot, whatever. But because you've done this trip so many times, so how do you interpret the aesthetic or the mindset that you bring each time you go there in terms of the baggage you're carrying compared to the baggage they're carrying, like all that stuff?
Yeah, I think, perhaps a related photo question to that is how do you keep taking a camera back to the same place over and over again and find new ways to look at that place and new things to shoot, right?
Sure.
Because, certainly every time I go back, there's usually a few years in between. Sometimes it's a very different occasion for me going there. And so it is fresh and new, and there's something different every time. While there's also, the fact that I've been there so many times before. So, I think it's tricky. It can be difficult to do that and to find fresh inspiration, I think, every time. I think whenever you go to a place for the first time, it's hard to avoid being a tourist while you're there.
Yeah.
Right. And have that. So you almost forget about your artistic expression. And you're just like, oh, this is an important, like the Eiffel Tower or something. Like, I have to take a photo of it.
Yeah.
It's much more difficult to try to photograph the building, one of the most famous buildings in the world, in a way that no one has before.
Sure.
Right? That's really the trick. So I think probably as we mature as artists, we want to be able to stand out, to do something different that people aren't doing.
Okay.
And it can be difficult to figure out how to do that. So I think every time I go back to Italy now, I very much feel that way.
Okay.
Where I'm walking around with my camera, but I probably take fewer and fewer photos every time I'm there.
But when you go back, are you going back to make photographs, or are you going back to connect more culturally, linguistically? Like, how are you going back, or what's drawing you each time?
Yeah, so to Rome in particular, I think I just have so many fond memories there. I just love the city at this point. Like, I know it pretty well. I'm comfortable there.
You should,
Yeah,
sure.
I can get around most of it, without a map, that kind of thing. I do like being able to practice Italian. My Italian's not very good. So it's good to have that excuse.
Okay.
Although every time I go back, the Romans seem to pick up more and more English, so they don't want to speak Italian as much.
Right.
So that's a disappointment every time I go.
Okay.
Every time I go back.
Are you cold?
Yeah, we
Is
probably
the aircon? Is the aircon?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, I think
I don't want you to for G's. I don't want you to be cold.
That's fine. But yeah, photography, of course.
Right.
I think when I'm walking around Rome, I always have a camera on me at all times, just in case, right?
Okay.
Actually, one thing I have picked up on is old Fiat 500s.
Okay.
Because they come in every color of the rainbow, and so
Right.
I like trying to, it's like Pokemon, I'm trying to collect them all, trying to get one of every color.
Okay, like
So
photograph or car?
Yeah, photograph.
Okay.
Yeah, try to get a shot of every
That's
color I can
interesting.
find. So that is something that, because it gives me a reason to scan the scene anytime I
Okay.
turn a corner, see if I
Okay.
can find a new one.
Picture this. Where do you live in Hong Kong?
Kennedy Town,
Kenya, they say. Where I used to live on Sand Street. Where do you live?
just off of Victoria.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the middle of the night, you're out with your friends, having drinks, all this stuff. A punk like me breaks into your apartment for whatever reason, is thinking to himself, I want to steal this guy's camera gear.
Yeah.
I figure out where in the hell, this small place, you've hidden all your camera gear.
It's not hidden.
Not hidden.
It'd be very easy to do.
Great, thank
You
you.
could walk right out with it.
What would I find? Describe your kit.
Yeah, I have it obnoxiously laid out on a shelf because
Nice.
I'm kind of OCD, and it's so like I think it actually slopes down from the tallest lenses on the left side down to the
love
camera.
it.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. You would be right to laugh at me. If you
No.
thought-
I love it. I love it. No, because it's a choice. Like it says, like for example, I have all my camera gear actually strewn in the house in 2 different places.
Yeah.
And it looks like I barfed it because
Sure.
that's just how my brain works.
Yeah.
But in your case, okay, so how much kit do you have?
Well, at this point, I think I have just what I need and not much more.
Oh,
so
okay.
several years ago, because I shot Canon full frame SLRs for 10 years or something. And then actually it was the occasion of moving abroad that caused me to rethink my whole gear
Oh, wow.
setup. I was like, now's the time to dump it all and do something else. So that's when Micro Four Thirds, they had just, Olympus had their original EM5 had come out. It looked really attractive as like a smaller, more portable kind of camera, and a little bit cheaper as well. So yeah, I sold all of my Canon gear. I had loads of L lenses and everything. Just dumped it all, and just bought a much smaller Olympus kit that I basically still have. I've upgraded the camera a couple times, but so I've got 3 zooms. I've got a telephoto, sort of a medium standard, and then a wide zoom. Those 3 zooms. I've got a 25 millimeter f1.2, very fast,
of course,
for portraits. That's 50 millimeters on a full frame equivalent. A couple of manual focus primes, a couple of lens babies for creative or macro stuff. And that's about it. So I've really just covered the stuff that I grab all the time. I don't like having lenses sitting around that I'd never use for anything, because I've done that before, but I realize they just sit there, so I sell them.
So important tech question for you. Explain for somebody who is new to photography the use of a tripod. Why is a tripod a good thing?
Well, it's less necessary now than ever, but I think
heresy. No, sorry. Go ahead.
But still necessary in many situations.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of the modern cameras have a lot of really good image stabilization.
Sure.
So you can get away with hand holding shots at like 1 second, maybe 2 seconds, which is insane.
Insane.
It's absolutely crazy. So, because before you would have had to shoot those things with a tripod, or find a steady, like a solid surface to sit your camera on.
Right.
But I think there are still certain types of photos where a tripod is absolutely essential. So first of all, if you want to plant the camera in a place and film movement, and it's really important that the camera doesn't move at all.
Sure.
You can really only do that with a tripod.
Yeah.
If you want to do really long exposures for motion, like waterfalls, people like doing the cascading water effects. Anything longer than a few seconds, you don't really have a choice. You have to use a tripod. There's lots of other practical uses. I started shooting film. Actually, the last image will be about that. And so I scan my own negatives, and I do that with my DSLR.
Okay.
So I need a tripod for that, obviously.
Right.
So yeah, there's still lots of reasons why you want a good tripod.
Sure.
It's important to point out that a crappy one is basically like having no tripod at all. So don't skimp. Right? If you're going to get a tripod, get a good one.
Good.
Yeah, landscape photography, lots of things. So yeah, I have a very good tripod. So, and I wouldn't be without it.
Lago di Como.
Yeah.
Perché?
Ma perché no?
Why? Why we have the photo now? I look at it now, I don't understand. It's like a great photo, but tell me more. Okay, so is it? How far away from Rome is this?
Quite, yeah. Como is up north. It's close to Milan.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a very different vibe. It's up near like the Swiss border. So it's. I mean, I don't know. Well, Southern Italians would say it's not very Italian up there.
Oh, okay.
It's much more German, Swiss, French. Sure. There's more linguistic diversity.
Okay.
It's a lot quieter. It gets colder up there.
Yeah,
so it's a very different vibe. It's hard to even tell that you're in Italy in some regards, actually.
Sure. Okay.
It's a part of Italy that I haven't been to the north much. I've generally been Rome and south, which is a very, very different vibe. As you say, like the north to south divide in Italy is pronounced.
Yeah.
So that was the last time that I was in Italy. I was there in, I think, 2019, maybe 2018, with my girlfriend who had never been to Italy. So
is this is this a shot of a town? Because I can see kind of small buildings.
Yep. Yeah. So Como is a giant lake with several kind of. It almost looks like a Y, like an upside down Y shape. But the shores are just dotted with these little towns.
Yeah.
And so you generally get around by ferry.
Okay.
You can drive, but obviously it takes way longer to get around, the circumference of the lake. So generally, if you're going anywhere, you're hopping along ferry. So it's all boat rides and
Amazing.
with these little towns in the distance.
If you're cheeky, you could have convinced me this was in Nepal. Because, I mean, like the peaks and the hillside is this beautiful sort of... I love seeing slightly denuded, slightly naked hills. And there's one perfect peak right pretty much smack in the middle of the shot that is barren. And I imagine in the winter it's snow-covered.
Yep.
And, it's a beautiful, beautiful image. Shall we go to the next image, sir?
Sure.
Okay.
Do it.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.